You do have a quorum. You could wait, but I think we should start the meeting and then Board Member Kim will probably show up. If that's okay with you, Vice Chair.
Sure. Good evening. Welcome to the November 7th Design Review Board meeting. Let's start with a roll call.
Yes, Board Member Malat.
Here.
Board Member Odorcio.
Here.
Vice Chair Rosner.
Here.
Board Member Chong is excused and we're awaiting Board Member Kim. We'll put that into the record when she arrives.
Thank you. Right now is the time for any oral communications. This is when any member of the public can address the board on a subject that's not on the agenda. Does anyone have any oral communications at this time? There's none in the room. Are there any raised hands on the Zoom?
We have no one with their hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to a staff briefing. Is there a staff briefing tonight?
I just wanted to let the board know that last night we held a city council meeting or town council meeting and about 801 Tiburon and the appeal. And the town council upheld your decision to approve the design as is. So it will be going forward. And that's the only thing I have for a briefing.
Thank you. Next is the adoption of the minutes from October 17th. Does anyone have any corrections that need to be made, or is there a motion?
No change.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Second, but I was unable to attend, so
Okay.
Mind you that as long as you write the minutes, you can adopt them. You don't have to be there, but it's up to you to write them and adopt them.
thank you.
Okay.
Have you read them? Have you read them, Board Member Odorcio?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So motion to adopt the minutes from October 17th. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? None. The motion passes 3-0 to abstained. And we'll move on to the consent calendar, which there is one item on the consent calendar, which is to adopt the resolution for the approval of 127 Leland Way.
Also let the record show that Board Member Kim has arrived at 7:02.
We just adopted the minutes. I think that's okay with you. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution for 127 Leland Way?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of adopting 127 Leland Way?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
I'm gonna abstain. I just got here, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Not heard that before. Okay.
Sorry.
3-0 to 2. The motion passes to adopt 127 Leland Way. And now we will start with public hearings. The first on the agenda is PH1 31 Main Street. If the applicant would like to come up, they'll have 20 minutes for a presentation.
The applicant is wondering whether we're going to give a staff presentation. So just so you know, we don't give a staff presentation. It's up to you. And do you have a presentation in?
No, there was only the packet that.
Okay,
assume you
all right. All right. I didn't know if you wanted the pointer or not. Okay.
Yep, that'd be great. And if you could speak into the microphone just for the Zoom callers.
Sure.
You'll have 20 minutes. You don't have to use all 20 minutes, but we'll start now and take it from here.
20 minutes, huh? Anybody hear anything about an election or anything lately? Sorry.
Do you need us to share we're going to share your drawings
yeah,
if you need to.
that'd be
Thank you.
perfect.
Thank you, Sam.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for your service to the town. My name is Evan Cross. I'm the architect working with Sam's Anchor Cafe. If you had a chance to go through the project, we received planning commission approval month ago or so, after working, with staff who've done a really thorough job going through all the bits and pieces of what is bringing this together. It's an unusual little building. It appears to be a different building, but it's actually on the same property as Sam's. It's occupied by Sam's. It's all integrated. Their offices are upstairs for the restaurant. The downstairs has been a mix of trying to entertain potential leases, retail, things like that. It was probably about 6 or 7 months ago, they came and asked, what do you think we could do with this? And I had done the renovation for Sam's 7 or 8 years ago. And it's quite an operation. It's also quite congested. So the purpose of this one, if you note in the plans, there is not now, but we are proposing an interior connection between this building and the back of house area of the main restaurant. This side of the building then becomes a more come and go, kind of like a market deli sort of thing, where you can get Sam's fare on a more informal basis. The intent, because it's actually a very small space, if you go inside, just a few hundred square feet, was to really open up that level to the street. To get to a point where you could really have street life coming and going in and out of the building in a way that isn't sort of passerby, but pause and enjoy and come and visit, grab some food on the way to the ferry or Angel Island, pick something up at the end of the evening if you're not going to go to the restaurant, but you're coming back and want to go home. The idea is to really engage the community in an open facade where people can come in and grab from Sam's without doing it right on top of, if you know Sam's, the entryway, which is the main hallway, the bar, the bathrooms, everything is all congested right at the front there. So the intent here was to basically keep 75% or more of the character of the building, and really address that ability for the community to go inside and outside, gather, talk while they wait for a pickup order, things like that, without adding to the congestion, but making it more part of the street. So the solution was a simple roll-up door where the window is now. There's 2 pairs of doors that serve separately, the upstairs and the downstairs, that seem confused and redundant to us. The intent on this one would be to simply, during good weather and operational hours, have the roll-up door open all the time. Not ahistorical either. I mean, I'm just looking at the photograph here of the train and the large doors in the building, that I have no idea, but it looks to be, downtown Tiburon. So this is just a reinvention of that. It's done in a very simple but durable way. The roll-up door would need to be metal framed, but it would be painted and finished out to look like the woodwork that's there now surrounding the doors and other pieces. And then the awning, I actually didn't draw the awning on the left one. There is an awning on the building. It actually covers up the windows and other stuff, and it's pressed sort of flat against the building. It's not it doesn't really serve much of a purpose because it's a northern exposure. It doesn't cover the street to protect you from rain. So we're trying to improve that a little bit, raise it up a bit higher so that it does create some potential coverage from any sort of drizzle or rain, and creates a nice streetscape. So pretty straightforward, and I did it in less than 5 minutes. So happy to answer any questions or discuss anything. I would parenthetically mention, we talked with staff quite a bit about different options, ways to do it. Looking at bifolding doors and slide away doors and all, and they really just don't create that open quality that we're looking for. And they, cause congestion really. So that's primarily why we went with the overhead door that we were looking at.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, you're welcome to step out.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now is the time to open to the public. If anyone in the room wishes to speak, please come now. None in the room. Is there anyone on the Zoom with their hands raised?
We have no one on Zoom with their hands raised.
All right, thank you. The applicant is invited for another 5 minutes if you wish to address anything else. Otherwise, you can yield your time.
Yeah, unless there are any questions.
Anyone else? Questions? You have
I
one?
do have word.
I do. Could you just explain a little bit more, why essentially a double door access is not adequate for, flow of traffic? I certainly enjoy seeing the frontage of the existing elevation now compared to, what truly looks like a garage door. And I just wondered why you gave up on the concept of larger double doors, as opposed to just a garage door style.
Two things come to mind. One, we wanted to create the opportunity to completely open up the front of the building and have people coming and going and gathering and chatting. And when you have swinging doors, particularly two right next to each other, there's always that sort of conflict of someone going in, someone going out. The second thing I would cite is actually news to me, but in reviewing the downtown handbook, the design guideline handbooks, it discourages double doors as, a little too, I don't know, mall, commercial, grandeur, and it's, the single door is preferred.
Okay.
Any other questions? I have one quick question. If no one else has, the functionality of the hold, is it mostly to pick up, or are people able to, are you gonna have like some small tables or drinks, or is it mostly just movement? Just
We'd like people to gather and have a nice time and get to know the staff and be able to come and go. There are no tables or seating proposed, and there's none on the sidewalk because there's no room for it. That's the narrow side of the street. The opposite side of the street has a wider sidewalk. The design guidelines, the handbook also call for no, sandwich boards or bric-a-brac or other things that congest the flow in the street. So the real intent is, if you know Sam's, they do to go or pick up, but people come in, they're in the front. Some people are waiting to get seated in the dining room. Some people are at the bar, other people are and they're yelling over the bar, I'm here for pickup, who's got what? It just gets to be a mess. This one is really intended to be that sort of remote satellite side of the restaurant. So if people wanted to gather and sit, we've got a full restaurant right next door. So this one becomes come inside and sit down and you go to the bar or go to the dining room or out to the rear deck. But this one is the idea is to be able to serve the community with grab it and take it home without getting in the way of all the other activities that are.
Okay, thanks.
Have you explored multi-fold doors that could actually function as a single door and it be closed in inclement weather, and one could sort of be, one leaf could be, one light can be sort of, a door?
We did. They're more problematic in the sense that, they sort of slide partially or open partially. And in terms of accessibility, a door like that, it's like you have to provide all your clearances and other things. So if you have just one panel, it starts to become a full-fledged door rather than a smaller thing. So we're using the one door that exists and saving it as the primary entrance. But when the roll-up door's there, it actually makes accessibility far easier for us because you can come and go anywhere.
I guess my other question is, on off-peak hours where there's not a lot of traffic, from a pickup perspective, is it just going to look like an empty room? Like, what are we going to be looking at as we walk by and the doors are open?
No, in the plan to the left, the flow, the depot building in Mill Valley, down on the downtown square. So what we did there is we gutted it and reinvented it in order to guide people. Here's where you can approach, here's where you turn, you can see what you might be purchasing from, and then there's a clear flow out that doesn't backtrack across what's there. So to the left, when the door is open, you approach what I call a service counter.
Yep.
Someone would say, "What would you like?" And then you move further in, pick up your pickup, POS, pay station, and then you can turn and go out. We have used the central area and the walls for grab and go and display. They're thinking that they'll probably do a lot of merchandise, Sam's sweatshirts and hats and Tiburon things. So as you come and grab your food, you might be able to see some of those shelves and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
And then those tables right there, there'd be sort of standing dining areas, kind of a standing drinks.
Not with this side at Sam's, yes, the building next door, but
So
not at this.
What are the oval, are those tables?
No, shelves and to pick up a cup or a drink,
Got it.
a Sam's mug.
I saw the elevation, yep, okay.
Oh, no. I mean, you have the plans in front of you.
Yeah.
And again, these, the larger sort of, I call them double doors, but these larger doors that fold in on themselves. Restoration Hardware store uses these, some, yeah, I know they're much more expensive than a garage door style. But, looking at a building where this door is going to be closed more frequently than open. I still have I have a little bit of a problem of looking at that, it's a very important location, it's part of the community, et cetera. And
So
I just have a problem with that.
I just want to ask, do you have a question for the applicant? Because we can deliberate.
Well, okay, but I guess I just want to ask, you have no other backup plan about using a alternate door than the garage door?
We looked at a few others, and it's interesting you bring up the restoration building, because the restoration building is gigantic. So they have room to sort of accordion the doors, and you don't notice them when they're there. This little space is a couple hundred square feet. So the concept of the roll-up door was, it was just the best way to get a clear opening and not, if you did an accordion door, it'd have to go to one side, that would push back the circulation route and the counters and things like that. Or if we did bifold doors, you'd have to stack them on either side when they open up. So it seems, really reasonable to sort of say, well, wait a minute, in a really small situation like this, where those kinds of things are actually sizable to move around when you're opening up a whole wall, they really become kind of cumbersome in the way of that open flow and feeling that we're really going for. And so the overhead just is if it's inclement weather, the main door is there and you can come and go, not a problem. But when it's nice, you get to open it up entirely and it's completely out of the way.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
I guess we can have the timer up, so sounded like we're done now. Okay, let's bring it back to the board. Does anyone want to kick this off?
You must close the public hearing and bring it back to the board, just so we put that on the record, if you might.
Public time is closed. Now it's back to the board.
I don't have any problem with the overall concept of the garage door style opening. I think it actually helps the sidewalk, helps enliven the sidewalk, makes it a little more active, as long as the weather is okay. The thing I have a problem with is this is a modern door, and the town of Tiburon is 150-year-old place. And the scale of this much glass is out of scale with the community. If you look at the existing building, it has two panels of 4 vertical sort of 18-inch by 12-inch pieces of glass, which is sort of the traditional old style glazing for a store. And then at a later date, it was the lower level was replaced with a single pane of plate glass. I think I'd like to sort of see the scale of the glass of the glazing in this garage door style have either 3 or 4 smaller panes of glass in each one of these sort of modern looking horizontal panes of glass, and probably the main door or the single door off to the side the same way. It just gives a better scale to the community and to the build, maintains the scale of the building in a better way than what you're proposing. So that's my only concern about it. Inside, I think it makes sense as a building, as long as you can lease the space up or use it yourselves. I don't have any problems with that. I'm also okay with, I assume this is the color, this sort of pale tan with an orangey trim on it. So that's it, just the glazing.
And I think I'm okay with it, except the top light, the top horizontal band. You see this window pattern on all of them where they break it up into some sort of smaller lights. Just wondering if that top piece can do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I suppose that would work.
I mean, because that pattern is all the way down the street, so there's a bunch of those. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Think-
This right here, this pattern right here.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah,
and that's
just that top band.
kind of like this.
Yeah,
I think that's what you
exactly.
were-
But the smaller scale windows used to go all the way down. These have all been replaced.
Oh, really?
Like glass, yeah.
Okay,
So,
well, I
Okay.
kind of like that. I kind of like that little band going across, but
Yeah, I think it would be better with the whole thing done in small scale, but I defer if that's the will of the group.
Give me everything.
Just, I think I was satisfied with the answer of an explanation of the garage door. I like Jim's idea that maybe there is a garage door style that's a little more historically correct. But otherwise, at this point, I'm satisfied with that answer.
It's just smaller scale. It doesn't, it harkens back to sort of what the origin of the town was, not our modern villa. The garage doors, by the way, work very well at the new Petite Left Bank restaurant, and they have 3 or 4 of them there, and it makes a really nice space,
Yeah.
which is also an indoor-outdoor space, which works pretty well in our climate most of the time.
Do you know what those look like?
The ones there at the, yeah. the
They're
Petite-
full like that.
They're like the ones that are proposed here rather than smaller scale.
But that's
Yeah.
in a modern building though, as
Yeah.
well.
It is a more
obviously.
modern building.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in general agreement with everyone on the board. I think I agree with the concept, and there's something, and I was reviewing kind of the downtown design guidelines, and it really stresses a lot about trying to, maintain character, but a lot of it is about restoration too. And I know it's hard to, you don't want to just go in this, everything has to go back to the old days. You want to make it look like, so I think you want to incorporate some upgrades and some new functionality. I would love to, I like your idea of the smaller scale. I would like to give some tangible feedback for the applicants, so they
Yeah.
have of an idea. So if
Yeah, I think we
someone
could
has a sense
approve it
of
with
emotion-
just a condition. But one other thing I need to mention. We approved about a year ago, a small building, another retail building up at the entry to the parking lot
Arc Row, yeah.
on Arc Road.
Mhm.
And we made the same decision there to reduce the scale of the windows, and they're in and they look great. I mean, the windows are they're vertical, but they're about 18 inches by 2 feet. And it has a much nicer feel to it than larger scale. But I would also say that these windows, if you did say four panes in that top row, that would give certainly some of the same feel to it.
My only I remember what you're talking about. My slight hesitation is these are garage doors, so it's it might be a little bit harder from a fabrication standpoint than the windows.
They can
If
do
you
it.
guys feel comfortable,
They can do it.
then that's fine. Okay. All right. Does anyone want to take a stab at the motion then?
Sure. I move we approve the plans as submitted with the exception that the four top windows in the garage door each have four smaller panes rather than a single pane.
Just that top row.
And the project is exempt from CEQA.
Project is exempt from
Thank you.
CEQA.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
I think we could do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None? The motion passes 4-0 to 1 absent. Thanks very much. We will move now to item number 2, which is 238 Round Hill Road. If the applicant wishes to come in 20 minutes.
We need a minute because we're having a little technical difficulty with the projector, Cedric.
There we go. Yeah, that's perfect. Hello, good evening. My name is Cedric Berenger, architect for Keith and Chloe Healy, the owners of the project that you guys saw on September, second meeting in September 16th, I believe. We had some good feedback from you guys at that meeting, and had obviously the neighbor to the north expressed some concerns about view blockage, which we were able to go a few weeks after the meeting and visit see the story poles from the neighbor's perspective, and knowing pretty well the hillside design guidelines, we felt like there hadn't been an opportunity for you all to see it from your own perspective, from the neighbors. And I hope that this week you were able to, and we opted to kind of see where you guys stood on the design as presented. Essentially, there's only a few small changes, so we can run through the so same size projects. Total square footage is 4181. Spread over 2 floors. There's a small accessory building in the back. We can go to the same general goals to fix the 70s roof line, stay on the same foundation, take advantage of the views, add a larger garage. Next slide. Really the main, hold on. I'm trying to do the pointer. Little sun. Oh, maybe it's not on. Okay. So having visited the Bocais, which is over here, they had originally talked about there had been some clearing here when we did the sewer lateral a couple years ago, and walked up to their backyard. So wanted to kind of infill some of, they've also done some significant trimming of their shrubbery on their side. So I just wanted to fill that in with some additional pittosporum, which is what we have down here, to just screen primarily this deck from their main deck, which is down on the lower floor. Next slide. Same fence along the front. Next slide. Really no change here. Still requesting a variance for this small portion of deck on the same Same findings that we argued last time. Next slide. I think we'll just go next one. The roof plan. Just a quick note, we had all the story poles and the flags tightened up on Monday afternoon, and they were all in place. And then Wednesday, there was a wind event that took down the flags here and took down the flags up top. So I apologize. That was just last night. So if you went to the site today, it looked like we didn't touch it since last time, which was not the case. So next slide. I think we can probably, so no change on the diagrams. We can kind of, so no change here. We're still working on the same materials. Next slide. You know, a medium color stucco wood on the second floor, black windows, some Ipe deck here and here. Next slide. Still looking to get some additional lot coverage on the ADU. So just a little more coverage over this outdoor space here. This is what is approved here. Next slide. Elevations also remain the same. This is the south side. Next slide. This is the book eyes, the 240 are over here. Next slide. This is the elevation facing the Bokai residence at 240. You know, this second floor, you can see the existing elevation dashed here. Next slide. Rear elevation really is facing mostly the uphill, not a huge change. So why don't we just skip to page 20, which is just the landscape plan. Yeah, one before, just pointing out that the pittosporum, additional pittosporum along here. Next slide, the lighting. I think the next one's going to take us through. We obviously do respect neighbors' views and want to try to. We took a deep dive at the hillside design guidelines, but really, it's a long document, as I'm sure you guys are familiar with. So I really wanted to dig into the most relevant. So the goal 3 is in respect to views, and I'll just read the key points. You know, to preserve existing views as much as possible and allow new dwellings access to views similar to those enjoyed from existing dwellings. Locate all new dwellings so they interfere down a little further minimally with the views of adjacent dwellings. Next slide. So this is a street view a little bit further down Round Hill of the story poles, and you see 240 Round Hill to the left. I think I mainly want to point out that we are at 238 Round Hill. We are essentially a one-story building with a partial second story, which is the master suite. The building at the house at 240 is a full 2-story building with a partial third story. So I don't think what we're presenting does anything but giving us access to views that are similar to those in the neighborhood. I think it is absolutely the same type of massing that you see from the street. It's the floor plates are essentially the same. So next slide. And I think it's important to point out, I mean, the layout. And here we have again, these are just MLS pictures, but you do see the relationship between the two. And the layout of this house, if you guys have not seen it, is kitchen, family room is down here. The formal living room is down here. Master suite is here, some bedrooms in the back, and this is an office. So I'm definitely going to make the argument that the main living spaces, as outlined in the hillside design guidelines, are these spaces. This is the view looking out, the lovely view to the Golden Gate Bridge and the bay. Next slide. There were some of these that were a little more relevant than others, but this is related more to landscaping, but there must be a compromise between conflicting objectives of existing dwellings and new ones. Views are very important, but so is privacy, rethinking solutions. So this problem is important. Really, like the compromise is what we're looking for here. This is a little less relevant because it's related to landscaping and whatnot. But if we go to the next slide, I think this is our primary argument. So partial view blockage should be avoided whenever possible. However, as much as we dislike it, views from existing dwellings must often be compromised by new dwellings or additions to the front of the existing structure. Remember, too, that once built, the new structure becomes part of the view, not a blockage of the view. Really, oh, sorry, if you go back, so view protection is more important for the primary living areas, living room, dining room, family room, great room, kitchen, and decks associated with these rooms than for less actively used rooms, bedroom, bathroom, study, office, den. The diagram shows perhaps a primary bath with view blockage. I don't think we have anything related, to this great level. Next slide. These are pictures taken from the Bokai residence at 240. They've trimmed down these, I believe it's bamboo, for better view of our project. This is where I'm standing at the threshold of the family room to the deck here. Next slide. So I've grayed in from the story poles. This is what I'm arguing is the main view. It is a panoramic view of the Golden Gate Bridge, the bay. Lovely. This is the main living space. I don't think our proposed project is interfering at all with this main view. Next slide. Even if you go out to the edge of this deck, this is probably, I'm going to guess it's 700 square foot deck. If you go out to the edge of it, you still have all of that same view of the Golden Gate Bridge, the bay, key elements. You see some houses beyond, and I'm not arguing that you cannot see our projects. You certainly can, but I don't think there's a privacy or a view situation here of a key view. So next slide. I'm going to focus more on this one, that blockage of the center view is more damaging than blockage of a side view. So if you go back again, there's no blockage of the center of the view. Side view, yes, you can see our structure. It's frankly, it's a dark enough color that it's not, and it's kind of shown as white here. Next slide. We'll go to the next one. So blockage of important objects in the view, Golden Gate Bridge, Belvedere Lagoon, Sausalito, Angel Island is more difficult to accept than blockage of other less well-known landmarks. I feel like we're looking at the picture we were just looking at here. Likewise here, a wide panoramic view can accept more view blockage than a smaller slot view. We have a large panoramic view with, yes, you can see our structure, but I don't believe anyone has the right, and when considering somebody expanding their house, to not see the proposed project. Next slide. So here we are again. Threshold of the main living space. I believe, if you go to the next slide, even if you were to take it to the second story, the master suite, which is not listed as a primary view situation, I'm not going to argue that you can't see our projects. You certainly can, especially since they've trimmed these down nicely. Side note that this is definitely not an allowed light fixture, but we don't need to go there. But I don't think this primary view is being affected by this structure. If you go to the next slide, you might have to zoom in a little bit. I've zoomed in. Again, from what I'm arguing is not a primary space. And mainly what we're blocking is trees here. This is a neighboring structure that's down at the creek of the road. These are trees. You certainly can, there's a blockage of a portion of the city, but if you go back one, you have to consider, in my opinion, the entire view. There's lots of view here, a panoramic view. We are blocking a portion of it, but I don't think we are blocking any more than is allowable or should be allowable in a major investment, capital investment in a house as we are doing. So next, I think we maybe skip to the next slide. I know the Buckeyes have argued that the office is their favorite room in the house. I just don't think it's a lovely view. And I mean, I'm standing in the middle of the room looking at the view from these side windows. While you can certainly see our project, it's blocking trees, and it maintains, even if this was considered a major a primary living space, which I don't think it's set up as an office with a couch. I don't think it can be argued that it is a main living space when the living room, dining room, kitchen, family room are all on the lower floor. So that's the primary argument. I think we are within the rights of what we're allowed to do within the Hillside Design Guidelines, and I'll leave it to that for your questions.
You had a side perspective with the that one exact. Could you sort of tell me where the windows are
We
approximately?
I think so this is one of the bedrooms. I believe the window is about here.
And that's one in front of the closet, and then the bathroom window would be.
The bathroom, I believe, is kind of, because the bathroom kind of lines up a little bit with this existing roof here.
Okay. And that overhang, I'm sorry, my eyes are so bad. How?
It's a 4-foot overhang.
Okay.
We're trying to maximize the sun protection on
Sure.
that western side.
Thank you.
I have a
Sure.
question to clarify, because I think I've heard some mixed responses for the story pole. Is it including the overhang currently, or it's not including the overhang?
So the story poles are to the top of the roof in this location. So actually, this is a good you can see it's to the top of the roof here. So it's not to the top of the plate. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
So it is to the top of the roof. It's not to the end of the overhang though.
And then it's 4 feet.
Yeah, 4 feet beyond that.
Okay, from the story pole.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Anyone else have a question? Yes.
Is there a reason why you didn't slope this particular roof the other way to give yourself better sun protection? And less bulk on the building?
we had considered that. I think we were trying to the roof over the living room, which is here. So the living room comes up here, and then this is kind of above the hallway, and it slopes back. And we did play around with different ways of cutting this, designing this roof. We ultimately decided to have everything sloping back here, so all the water was kind of collecting in the back, as opposed to mucking up this facade with gutters and stuff coming down here, which would be a lot more visible.
You have a roof slope going the opposite direction over what I think is the living room, family room, or Beyond
Yeah,
it.
yeah, this is a living room here, beyond, like in that middle section of,
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I had one more. How tall are the ceilings in in that front bedroom? And
the ceilings are 10 feet throughout the second story.
10 feet throughout.
And we opted that primarily because we're trying to get, we know that there's going to be HVAC soffits going through. So where there are soffits, we were hoping to go down to 9 feet to get that chase through, not have a bunch of stuff up on the roof.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thanks very much. At this time, we'll open to the public if anyone wishes to speak. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Michael Bokai. I own 240 Round Hill along with my wife Diana. She was supposed to be here tonight, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. So I'm going to have to skip over our slides really quick and speak fast. So the first slide there, if you can bring that up. Yeah, so again, we're on the left side here, 240, and construction is happening at 238. Second slide. So this is really the crux of it. To begin on the positive, you can say that we're okay with 90%, 95% of the proposed design. Our issue is just with this corner. If you just take some time and absorb the location of the two houses, they're quite close. They're close to the property line and they're very close to each other. It also happens to be in our direction of our view. As shown, I think these are pretty accurate, this being the bay and the bridge and the city. So that's the crux of it, is really that corner. And I would argue that it is impacting us from our primary living space, being, both of the decks, the master bedroom and our uppermost room. We like to call it an office, but to us, it's a family room. We hang out up there, we have a projector. Anyhow, we'll move on. I got to go quick here. We can skip this slide. We can skip this one. And even skip this one in the interest of time. So this is, the previous views that Cedric showed, they looked a little cartoonish to me, kind of like real estate photos where they're a little bit bent and askewed. This is a real photo showing directly what you see. This is our master bedroom. This is the balcony. You can see the story poles as is are directly in front of our view of downtown San Francisco. And again, what's important to note here is these poles do not include that significant overhang of the roof line. So we're looking at this very dominant structure in our face along with an overhang. Not a nice thing to wake up to all of a sudden. You spend a lot of money on a home and all of a sudden these poles go up and you have a massive construction next door. We thought we bought a house with privacy and views, not an apartment where we're next to each other looking at a wall. Next slide, please. This is from the uppermost room. Again, there's the city, same view we want from the primary space. But you have this very dominant structure, not including the overhang hanging off of it. 4 feet, as you said, 4 feet is not small. Next one, please. These are just real quick. I'm a mechanical engineer and I was trying to just go through the drawings to see what's going on. Next slide. The thrust of it is, this is the as-is construction imposed on the new one. It's being pushed forward, it's being pushed up, and we're losing the the angular roof line. So it's this huge impact to our use of the space. And one more slide. So again, I try to look at what it's really impacting. So we're okay with all of this. It's just this corner. This bedroom number 3 is literally in our face. So Cedric did a good job of putting the windows here so they don't have to look at us so much. But unfortunately, we're on this side and we're looking at all this massive structure in our face. Not a nice thing. We want to support the Healy's and improving their home, but we don't understand why it needs to be literally at our expense. So we are indeed very distraught over this. I thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. Anyone else from the public in the room that wishes to speak? I think you're the applicant.
Yeah, I'm the applicant.
You'll have
Afterwards?
afterwards, yeah, we'll have 5 minutes.
All good.
Anyone else in the room? Seeing none, is there anyone on the Zoom that wishes to speak?
We have no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. The applicant is now invited to have 5 minutes to address anything that was previously discussed.
Sure. Cedric Pranger again. I think the main response is we did look at the idea of pulling this mass back 2.5, 3 feet. We looked at pulling it back to the story poles that are second in line there, which are aligned with the existing house. And unfortunately, that just triggers, if you think about taking that mass and pulling it back, we're at our lot coverage of 15% right now, and it puts us into a variance territory, which I feel strongly that we're not required to have a variance to get what we need to get done here. So I mean, with all due respect to the Bocais, I appreciate the starting the comments out on a positive note. But I'm speaking for my clients. I think we're in, as I said, we're not proposing a project that is invisible to the neighbors. We accept that. But I think we're proposing a project that is well within the rules of what is and should be allowed. So Keith, did you Keith's gonna.
Keith Healy, 238 Round Hill. Just want to say thank you guys for your time. And also, this isn't, an us versus them situation. I just want to have the project judged by the merits of what the rules state, what's allowed, and the heights that are allowed. We've been working on this project and designing it for, prior to their occupancy of the home. And yeah, we've put a lot of energy into it. And I hear their perspective, and for us, we just want to follow the rules that are stated, and that's what we're attempting to do with this project. And so, yeah, maybe it seems like a lot to them at this point, but I think at one point someone said to me about a borrowed view is just a borrowed view. If we're allowed to have this height on our lot, if we're allowed to build within the rules of this lot, it's not our fault that this is, becoming an issue for them. This is what's allowed for a home. And we want to take advantage of the view as well. Our home is hidden behind new construction at the top of the road. There's trees blocking a lot of our view. This is our attempt to make a beautiful house for us to enjoy. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Have you looked into creeping into the setback, pushing back and creeping into the setback?
Creeping into the rear setback?
Side setback.
The side setback?
Yeah.
We hadn't looked at that too much just because it's well, in my experience on large lots, the side setback is a little more protected at 15 feet. So plus I guess the other reason was that the foundation is solid and good there. And I guess a little bit the same as our issue when we explored pulling everything back, because it gives you a little bit of a Frankenstein feel if you start pulling blocks. But no, but to answer your question, no, I hadn't considered that because of the I guess unpredictability of a side yard variance.
And then what about the sewage easement? Could you describe where that is on? in the back?
There's an easement. I think it's essentially the setback. I believe it's a 15
So
foot.
that's a sewerage easement.
Oh yeah. So I guess that answered your
Okay, that answers my
previous question.
question. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for pointing that out. I haven't looked at the survey in a long time.
Any other questions?
Now, could you discuss just a little bit more about this? I'll just call it the third bedroom. Was there any way to pull back and have setback on just that portion of the home and the 4-foot extension? Is there any way to make that shorter? Because that does seem to be very obstructive to the neighbor's view.
You're talking about this bedroom specifically?
Right.
Yeah.
And if that was pulled back, does it open up that view anymore?
Well, so we looked at pulling it back essentially 3 feet, and then bumping that 3 feet back here, and there was not a tremendous impact other than it just didn't look very attractive. So we wanted to get your opinion on this. The 4-foot setback or the 4-foot overhang rather, is really only on the sides and the front. This is the canopy above the living room. That's 6 feet. We were trying to keep it consistent and the most effective in providing shade to those upper windows. And certainly that western sun can get intense. I'm not even sure 4 feet will do it, but it'll help.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thanks very much. We will end the public comment at this time and bring it back to the board. Anyone want to start?
I'll start. I think it's not about the view, it's about the massing to me. It's about the presence of that massing. And I think there is a solution there that could work for both. The first thing is the windows on that side. I think they need to be clear stories. I think just having a set of windows that actually looks into the neighbor's deck is just not super great. So having the window for the bathroom that could be frosted or that could be fritted. And then the bedroom, that the side light could maybe become a clear story instead of like a access point. Second thing is, I think there might be a universe where you can start looking at instead of striking a line on the side, I'm wondering if that back room, let me see, bedroom 2 could overhang the laundry, and that would sort of allow for the bathroom and the bedroom to be pushed back. So instead of having like a straight line, you would have like a jog. I mean, that's just an idea, but I think there's a universe where we can push back that front.
Yeah.
That thing just a bit. But yeah, it's not about the view. I agree with Cedric. It's not about the view. I mean, that's not the issue here. The issue is about the massing and the privacy. So and having it's like the sky, you know, having the massing there that's kind of blocking the light. So I think there's a slight iteration that could happen there on that facade. just a little bit massaging. So that's where I stand.
I tend to agree. There is a view loss there though of the city, which is one of the major features from a portion of the house, which is not the main living area, but it is a frequently used area. I too feel that you've created a wall that's, by adding up this upper floor, the wall is about 45 feet deep and 25 feet high. So it's close to 1,000 square foot wall in one plane, which breaking up the massing of this building it's actually broken up fairly nicely the way it stands now, but it needs to have some more help to it. I think you could bridge over that back walkway that walks along the back of the house with one or two of those upper rooms and make a better composition out of this. And I don't see any structural reason at all why it couldn't be done. You're on rock up there, serpentine. The roof sloping upward as you go downhill is one of the things that the design guidelines also warns against. The roof slope wants to terrace down the hillside or slope down the hillside rather than going up against the hillside, which just makes it look more monumental. I think those are my principal points, and I think it would benefit by a revision to that wall. In the process, you're going to save your neighbors some grief. And then I'd like to add one thing that I think is coming out in almost all of the work we do. Your downhill neighbors are letting their trees grow into your views. So that's taking view away from you that you bought. And I think it's time we started mentioning this more often when it happens. And this is one of those places where 2/3 of the view appears to be gone from both of these houses facing downhill, which would help with the problem this job is creating.
Jim?
Well, I think I just reiterate what's been said and what I was very concerned about, just that mass, that loss of privacy, that extension of that corner of that house. I just would not approve that. I think that has to be moved. I don't know why it can't be moved back. There can be some other options with it. I think with the laundry room that's in that space, but I think you have to respect the incredible effect of the mass and loss of that view from the neighbors. And I have to see bedroom 3 moved.
All right, thanks. A bit, I want to say I'm on the other side of everyone on this one. I definitely appreciate the impact. I too, I don't think it's about the view. I think specifically it is about the massing, really only from that master deck.
Yeah.
I think on the main lower deck, you really have to like rotate. It's just not a natural, I think.
It's the second story addition.
The second
That's the
story.
problem.
It's I think the impact is mostly from that main deck. Sorry, that master bedroom deck for me. And I think the reason why I'm a little bit more on the other side, just in terms of and believe me, we just earlier in the meeting discussed an appeal that was approved that I was against because of the massing, and often for me is there easy revisions to do that make a significant impact, lessen the negative impact significantly. And that's what I like to see if possible when there's an impact, but is it again, it's walking out onto that deck. To me, it's not like it's not a primary living space, it's not primary view. So I think I'm a little bit less on the, like, has to be a huge revision. I'd love to see it you know, maybe there's a height, if it comes down 2 feet, you know, we talked about 10-foot ceilings. You know, these bedrooms are small. I think there is a, you know, Jim brought up a good point. You know, can you kind of cantilever that bedroom 2 over a little bit? So for me, I'm a little bit more on, can you bring it down maybe 2 feet? You know, we're talking about 10-foot ceilings. I don't know how deep the ceilings are on in the lower level. Can it push back? I don't know if that materially changes the impact of the massing. And for me, I'm kind of like, I'd probably still, I'd vote for as is, just because I think it's the floor plan is not like superfluous. It is very thoughtful. We all talked about how thoughtful this project was in the first iteration before we saw the view blockage, and just giving the architect credit for really building a great floor plan, not disrupting, you know, the property, not, you know, really digging into the hillside, not exceeding lot coverage. So I think we should remember that as we're talking about like major revisions and what can plausibly be done from like a mitigation of the impact. But
These aren't major revisions, I think.
I think that's what I want to provide, because I think we're not, as a board, what I heard from others is not like, oh, this is a minor thing. Like, I think, and that's what I want to provide the feedback from the applicant, because I think I heard very different things up here from come back to us with this, you know, and I think we should specify that a little bit more. Because maybe you said some minor revisions, but I didn't hear that from my other 2 colleagues.
I don't think it'll take a huge drawing engineering feat to do this. I mean, this right here, this is going to be within the setback. It's just an idea. I think there's just little tweaks here and there.
Frankly,
Yeah.
we often grant variances when it assists in the massing or privacy issues in a house. This is not a major variance.
Hey, Jim, can you turn on your mic? Thank you.
If they have to go back into the yard, they'll have maybe a few hundred square feet of lot coverage variance. That's a great trade-off for solving a massing problem like this.
I don't even think they need to even do that.
I don't think they do either, but
I mean, with
yeah.
this solution, it's just,
Yeah.
it's keeping within it. I think there's a way, there's just one more iteration. And I think it's a combination of pushing it back, maybe 3 feet, maybe something
I
like
think
that. And
I'd push for bridging across and actually going back 10 feet. But that's, you know, I think somewhere in there's a solution to go back a little bit.
And this is why I wanted for us to have this discussion a little bit more, because there's a difference between 2-foot pushback and a bridge.
a 3 foot, yeah, 3
You know,
foot
so I think that's
pushback, and then also dealing with the windows, so the elevation, just playing with the elevation a little bit. So I think I don't want to prescribe anything, but I think
Okay.
for me, it's just a little bit more.
And again, that pushback, you're talking about loss possibly of laundry room space, maybe redesigning some bathroom space. I don't see where that couldn't be improved with some additional thought of what to do with that corner.
So you're on pushing back a little bit to kind of alleviate
Well,
some of that thing, where the 3 and 10 feet are different. So I just want to.
Well,
Right, I would not use the term little.
Let's
I think
leave
I
it
think
up
it's
to the
significant.
architect, what he wants
Yeah,
to do, but
right.
frankly, a great advantage of pushing back and bridging would be access at the upper level to the
Yeah.
outside. I
Right,
mean, you know, it'd be a whole different concept of that yard back there, which is virtually useless the way it is. The north, I guess that's the north quarter of the parcel. But I do think it warrants a revision to reduce the mass and bulk of the building on the front, and the downhill, the reverse slope of the roof. Those are 2 areas I think are important.
yeah. And I think I'm saying the same thing. I want the architect to, it's a beautiful home. I'd love to see what the architect could do to help us with that mass,
Yeah.
and leave it up to a revision there from them.
The interesting thing about it is the existing home has nice massing, even though it's 2 stories in the middle. It steps down toward its neighbors on
Mhm.
both flanks, and it's a comfortable on the site. But when you put all of this mass at one edge of it, it's off balancing the whole composition.
Okay, so it sounds like we're gonna have a motion to continue and does anyone wanna give a motion and kind of suggest the areas of improvement that the board wishes to see and be a little prescriptive on that side?
Do you know what's the situation on the status of the application? Do we have any deadlines or
They
anything?
can go ahead and, you can go ahead and continue it. We don't have any
Okay,
problem with that. I just want to make sure, since this would be a third time coming before the board, that there's some consensus about what the applicant has to do in order to comply with what you're seeing as the issues. Because I do see there's a variance here, no, of ideas, not a variance for the land. And it makes it difficult then for staff to work with the applicant and the applicant to actually respond.
for me, it's pushing it back, maybe bringing down a little bit of the elevation of the roof height. Maybe it's a little bit of the elevation of the windows, playing around with that so it's not looking directly into the neighbor. That's for me.
I would love a consensus on the direction if I could.
I don't know if you're gonna get a consensus on the depth of how much to push back. I was trying to get that myself, but
Yes.
I think there's a spectrum of there's a spectrum.
So if I could ask, and this might be not really what I'm supposed to do, but I'm going to do it anyway, which is, so if we're not concerned about the view, but we're concerned about the massing, we really need to, you can push back on me at any point. It's really hard because, we've had the applicants here for twice and we never like to come back too many times. But I want to make sure I'm clear. You're concerned about the massing from where?
The massing on the north side of the house
So,
is a single plain wall
okay,
that is 25 by 45 or something in that
Okay.
range. And that needs to be reduced either by offsetting or pushing back in some way. And hopefully making the downhill part of it, which is the northwestern
Mhm.
corner, pulling that back. The differences are 3 feet to 10 feet, depending on what the architect feels he can do.
okay, because remember what the beauty of this design was that the foundation remains and you're keeping sort of the shell of this. And so if we push it back too far, and I'm not an architect, but I kind of think I know this question, you're gonna have to do something with the foundation, I would think. Structurally, there might be some changes. So I'm just wanting to make sure when we ask for this, that we understand.
Yeah, either of these proposals would not necessarily make you change the foundation. It would add a piece of foundation on the uphill side. And honestly, you're on solid rock here, which is why the foundation can be reused at all. You don't have foundation issues with this parcel from
Correct.
my standpoint.
Okay.
For me, you don't have to do the foundation. It's not a mass extrusion where it goes all the
That's
way
what I'm-
down. You
yeah, I
can
just want-
actually shift the top floor. You can rotate it, have a slight cantilever of the back room over the door for the laundry, and you can have that. That allows for the bathroom to shift back. If you want to see my drawing.
No, I
It-
think
it's
I
an idea.
understand.
It's an idea.
I think what I'm trying to do is provide the architect and staff some solid, because I want to make sure that when we come back, that we've addressed this and that the massing won't be an issue again. I mean, it's going to be there. I don't think there's any way for it to disappear.
I'm sorry,
We-
Unfortunately, we're closed the public.
So you can provide your drawing, Suzanne, for us later if you want to, so we can have some ideas.
I think he understands the strategy, what I was talking about. Yeah.
But we do, I mean, I think, and just want to make sure that we know we can't make this mass disappear.
I mean, I already said, I'm
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
in the minority here. I would, I would love to see, I always would love to see impact minimized for the neighbor, but at some point it becomes overly punitive and I don't, for me, the balance isn't there right now. And I like Suzanne's idea. Like I said, I would probably vote as is now, so that's where I'm at.
It's a continuum. Sorry.
thanks for that. It's clearer now, though. Now that I pushed back a little bit, it's clearer.
Okay. So, motion,
Do you want to continue to a date certain, or when's the next time we could come back?
Do we want to ask the architect, open it up for just asking the architect?
Because I know that they're kind of been working on this for some time, so I'm sure that Mr. Berenger would like to have this as fast as he possibly could.
yeah, we'll open to the public solely to ask for timeline of the next submission.
So the next meeting is the 21st of November. And then after that, December 5th, right? December 5th, and then we're into the new year.
And you have to deal with.
There's not a later, there's not a second December.
It's unfortunately into the 20, let's see. Oh, maybe, are we gonna be, do we have a quorum? I don't know.
I'm asking mainly just because story polls would have to get shifted and story polls would have to get shifted by typically 3 weeks before.
Yeah.
So
Well,
September
we do
5th
have a
would be like
19th. We
next
do
week.
have, yeah, we do have the 19th. Hopefully we have a quorum. People gonna be here on the 19th,
19th of December.
I'll be here.
December.
I'll be here.
Okay, so it looks like we'll have a quorum, so we could continue it to that date to make it a date certain.
There's no better way that I'd like to spend my birthday than with you guys.
Oh.
Wear little hats or
The
something
19th
for you.
is fine if that's, it was, I guess just to clarify, so December 5th, story polls would have to be up by like next week.
Monday, next week, no,
Days before the meeting. So
But isn't there a noticing thing with the ARC and?
if we continue it to a date certain.
we avoid it.
So the code would just say 10 days before the meeting, so you would have a little bit more time than Monday.
So December 5th, you said? December 5th, and then story polls would have to be up by November 25th.
Yeah, so,
So,
okay,
even if it was like November 20th. I think we could still,
Okay.
as long as you're communicating with us to know what's changing.
Yeah,
that would be fine. Yeah.
so there's a trick that we can do. The ARC shouldn't hear this, but we can continue it to a date certain of December 5th. And if for some reason the polls don't go up or you're need to continue it again, at the December 5th meeting, we would be notifying that it would be continued to the 19th.
Yeah, let's do December 5th then.
all right, so now we're ready for motion.
Like to make a motion to continue the hearing to the December 5th hearing.
Correct.
A second.
There's a second, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed? None, the motion passes 4-0 to 1 absent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and the last agenda item this evening is 42 Norman Way. This is an appeal. So I'll just go over the appeal process, the appeal procedure. Town staff, this is an appeal of town staff decisions. So town staff may make a brief 10-minute presentation if they have one. And then the appellant will make a presentation of no more than 10 minutes. And can respond to any questions that the DRB has. And then the applicant or any applicant representatives will then make a 10-minute presentation. And then we'll open it to public for comment for 3 minutes. And then after the public comment, the appellant is entitled up to a 3-minute rebuttal if desired. And then the applicant is entitled to 3-minute rebuttal if desired. I can go over that again.
Yes.
If we get.
Since we have counsel here,
Yes.
how does the law work in terms of if there is a dispute on boundaries and we, I mean, obviously we're not a judiciary body, so how does that work? Like, if we make a decision and let's say that the courts come in and they say, well, no, the boundary is supposed to be here, then what happens? Like,
I can answer that question. Any future changes to the property lines would be shown through a certified survey and would be deemed a civil issue to be reviewed in court. The town does not take action on any future litigation outcomes.
so if we make a decision, they build this fence, and let's say that the line is somewhere else, then how does that impact the town?
We would review that at the time and we would consider, we will follow the court's orders, but right now that's not what is before you today. The decision before you is the design review decision of staff. And so what happens in the future is
We should not consider it. We should just look at what it is today.
the narrow decision of staff's approval of the design review permit for the fence.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful.
All right. With that cleared up, does staff have a presentation to go? All right.
I do have a presentation. Good evening, Design Review Board members. Before you tonight is an appeal of the Community Development Director decision to approve a minor site plan and architectural application for a 6-foot tall redwood fence along the east property line of 42 Norman Way. Oh, you have to click, okay. The property is located near the top of Norman Way, as seen here. 48 Norman Way is located to the east of 42 Norman Way. The proposed fence is located on the east side of 42 Norman Way, as indicated as number 4 on the site map. On May 13th, the applicant applied for the application for a new 6-foot tall fence. On July 25th, the town mailed a courtesy notice to properties within 100 feet of the subject property. On August 1st and 2nd, the town received public comment on the application from the owners of 48 and 16 Norman Way. Based off the comments provided, staff conducted further research, and based off this additional research, on August 21st, the director approved the application. On August 26th, an appeal of the decision was filed by the owners of 48 Norman Way. Staff recommends the board deny the appeal of the proposed fence and uphold the community development director's decision to approve the application. However, to approve the appeal, the board will need to make the required findings. The proposed application meets the principles outlined in town code for granting approval of a site plan and architectural review. The project meets all requirements of setbacks, height, lot coverage, floor area, and parking requirements, and complies with the zoning requirements outlined in town code. Therefore, the application was approved by the community development director. The appellant listed 4 grounds for their appeal. The first is the purpose of the fence. The second was the property line dispute. The third was the lack of an HOA sign-off. And the fourth was a property ownership dispute. What's going on? Thank you. The first ground for appeal states that the fence is not being built for a proper purpose and will negatively impact the 48 Norman property. Per town code, residentially zoned parcels may have a fence that occupy any required setback, provided that a fence over 42 inches receives a permit and does not exceed 6 feet in height. As outlined in the staff report, the proposed fence meets the applicable requirements in town code and therefore is in compliance with town code. The second ground for appeal states that the land where the fence is to be built is subject of current property owner lawsuit. The survey provided at the time of the submittal shows that the proposed fence is within the property boundaries for 42 Norman Way. The survey was peer reviewed by the town's engineer, who confirmed that the fence is to be located within the property boundaries. Any future changes to the property lines shown through a certified survey would be deemed a civil issue to be reviewed in court. The town does not act on applications based on future litigation outcomes. The third ground for appeal states that the applicant failed to obtain HOA sign-off before seeking a permit with the town. The town does not enforce CC&Rs. HOA sign-off is not required for permit approval. CC&Rs are a private agreement between the homeowner and developers and are not enforced by the town. The fourth ground for appeal states that there was a court case to remove the applicant as a trustee for 42 Norman Way. The town reviews materials provided at the time the application is submitted. The documents provided at the time that this application was submitted show the applicant had the right to seek property improvement permits. In conclusion, the owners of 48 Norman Way are appealing the director decision to approve for a 6-foot tall fence due to the accused purpose of the fence, a property line dispute, a lack of an HOA sign-off, and a property ownership dispute. However, this application meets the principles outlined in town code, does not impact setbacks, height, lot coverage, floor area, or parking, and therefore meets town code and was approved by the community development director. And this concludes staff presentation, but we are available to answer any questions.
Can we, we're strictly commenting on the merits of the appeal. What about, we are a design review board, can we comment in any way on the design of the fence?
I think that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that is, you're looking at the site, you know, the 1652 160. You know, the site plan architectural, so I will pull up the specific section, but subsection H, which has those guidelines, and that's what you're using to review the fence. And if you decide to look at the design of the fence under those standards, you are within your discretion to do that.
We can discuss the merits as well as the aesthetic look of the fence.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I again would just add, you know, if you're looking at the design of the fence, whatever happens in the future, we would deal with it, you know, for the town and building or enforcement should that come up. But before you today is the design of the fence and staff's approval of that fence. Thank you.
And just a follow-up question to that, I think I understand, but so the property line, property ownership have nothing to do with, we have nothing to do with the, of that, say so of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, any other questions for staff? All right, we will bring up the appellant now. You have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address or relation to.
Sure, good evening. To make this a little bit easier, you're handling the slides, right? So if you could just go to exhibit, you don't have to scroll down a bit, but go to exhibit 3 and 4. But I'll get started. I'm Patricia Rosenberg. Good evening. And I represent Cynthia and John McGuinn, who live at 48 Norman Way and have resided there for 30 years. Mr. McGuinn is here. Mrs. McGuinn was unable to be here. 48 Norman Way and 42 Norman border each other at the location where Mr. Norman is seeking to place the fence. The land upon which he's seeking to place the fence is land that the McGuinns have developed and maintained for over 30 years, hiring gardeners, arborists, pruners, and improving their property with the deer fencing, a gate, stairs, lighting, irrigation. And in general, they're not opposed to placing having a fence placed as long as it's properly placed in an area that doesn't interfere with their use of their property. And if approved, this proposed fence, which is really a wall because it doesn't enclose anything, would negatively impact them because it's also precisely the area that the disputed ownership is being adjudicated in Marin County Superior Court. Litigation was commenced by Mr. Norman, a cross complaint to quiet title to this specific area where he wants to place the fence is an issue. And I draw your attention to the cross complaint, which is in the appeal materials, paragraph 11, 16, 22, and 26, which define that, that area. But specifically on attachment 3 to the application, there is, which we just saw, there's a highlighted area, and that highlighted area is the specific area in dispute in litigation with the court. So if the court does adjudicate in favor of the McGuinns, that the fence will have to come out. It is a matter of record, however, that Charles Norman has never been an owner of 42 Norman Way. 42 Norman Way is owned by the Norman Trust. Recently, the court removed Mr. Norman as a co-trustee from the Norman Trust for breach of fiduciary duties. And I have saw that in the report, staff report, page 3, the order was referenced. It's been provided to you. It did not get provided to you at the time of the appeal. It got provided to you the minute it came down from the court, which was after the appeal time had been for submission. But it is important to note, and I do have it in the materials, that that order was entered because the McGuinns have contend that Mr. Charles Norman does not have standing to bring this application, as he is not an owner, nor is he a co-trustee of the trust that owns the property. The sole remaining trustee who owns the property is Alan Norman, his brother. And it's noteworthy that Alan Norman is not making an application for this fence and is not joining in the application for this fence. And in fact, sent an email, which I had brought as Exhibit 4 to the materials today, where Mr. Cook, his attorney, says specifically, it appears to us that the permit includes disputed areas in the Norman versus McGuinn litigation. So the only person who is now seeking to place a fence is Charles Norman. And again, the McGuinns contend that he's not the owner nor the trustee to be able to proceed. Importantly, the important part is you have to look at the impact on the McGuinns. And this is where I need Exhibit 6, please. And you said there's a sun or something here I can use as a pointer. So the property itself, it looks like no one, if you scroll down, there's 2 photos to Exhibit 6. It looks like no one has evaluated the actual impact to the McGuinns specifically of this fence, because where Mr. Norman wants to place the fence, there's one picture below this one, and we'll get back to this one. There we go. Thank you. So where he wants to place the fence is where this stake is. You see this gate. This is the gate that the McGuinns have put there and built steps here, put in lighting and irrigation. This is their garden. And then they have acres in the back of garden. They use this gate on a regular basis. Their gardeners come in a couple times a week. They use it daily. And these steps, and this is a meditation bench they've had there for decades, and they use that as well. Unfortunately, where Mr. Norman wants to place this fence is going to impede the use of this gate and these steps, and will go straight down here and basically intersect the garden and be a couple of inches in front of this bench on the other far side of the bench. Basically, ruining their entire ambiance and the nature of their home here. And the purpose supposedly is for privacy for Mr. Norman's sake. And here's the top of their rooftop here. There's no privacy issue here. There is also the issue of where the fence could be placed. There are acres of land going down to the Norman home. It's downslope, that the fence could be placed in a different location where it was not involving their use of their property on a daily basis, where they would see a 6-foot tall, 30-foot long fence that they've never had to see before. It was from 30 years of use. Now, if you go back to the, oh, and these bushes here are right outside the bedroom. So the bedroom will now look out on a 6-foot fence. If you could go back to the other side, that one, here is the gate. If you just scroll down just perfect. Thank you. Here's the gate that you were just looking at, and then the steps. And so the fence is going to go right here, right along where they use the gate and where the steps are. So it really negatively impacts the use and enjoyment of their home that they've had. If you could go to Exhibit 5, please, where the other photos are. It impacts the bedroom as well. And not only the garden walkway, but the bedroom, which would impact Exhibit 5's all the way at the end. But I'll just tell you, it would prevent light coming into the bedroom and light coming into the ensuite bathroom. That's the meditation bench. And then this is a photo taken from inside the bedroom looking out. And as again, there's no issue with the rooftops or privacy, but there would be nothing but you see but a 6-foot fence, 32 foot long. So it's seemingly, from the McGuinn's point of view, that this fence is being put up for punitive reasons as a spite fence. And the application doesn't provide any information about design. We don't know what it's going to look like. There's nothing, how is it capped? How is it going to be maintained? We don't know if it's going to be any kind of finish on it. There's no information that has been provided to the McGuinn's about that. And it will be, and it's important because it's going to be visible from the bedroom. It's visible from the upper deck off the living room. It's visible from their garden. And it seems that, again, that it's punitive in nature. So the McGuinn's are requesting of this board that it deny the application without prejudice for the actual trustee owner of 42 Norman Way to bring the application if they so choose after the litigation is completed or resolved through settlement. As an alternative, the McGuinn's are requesting that you continue this matter for 6 months. They've had this home and this land for 30 years, the way it is. And 6 months will not be prejudicial to anybody, but it will allow the court enough time to make a decision about the land that is an issue. And it will also give the opportunity, and the McGuinn's would request that your staff come and see the property and actually see the real impact that it makes. It's much more impactful in person than in photos, though we attempted to show the impact. So that is what we are requesting. And again, it seems to me to be rather punitive in nature as opposed to serving any real purpose. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Does anyone have any questions for the appellant? Seeing none, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
The applicant is now invited to speak for 10 minutes.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing me. Savannah, do you have the document? Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. So this is basically.
Sorry, I just want to get the timer set up before we start.
Yeah.
All right, we're good. Thanks very much.
Cool. So this is a site map of the property. You can see that they've got existing structures. There are 2 yurts that were highlighted in her presentation that are not visible from the ground floor, but if you go up to the second floor, they can look directly down into our living spaces. So just kind of give you a lay of the land. Some of the photographs that you saw don't really reflect the line of sight that we see from where we are down below. So a fence would help mitigate some of the privacy that we lost when the McGuinn's cut down trees on our property. that they unlawfully cut down on our property. So this is a site plan. It shows you where the yurts are and then the garage. Next slide, please. This is a drop dead simple redwood fence. It's got 4x4 redwood posts that go in the ground 2 feet. They extend out of the ground by 6 feet, and there's going to be 1x8 fence boards on our side of the property. So there's a possibility that we'll stain it, but it may just be natural wood. We haven't really gotten to that point yet, but we're not talking about anything fancy here. This is a really simple design. So that's the design, and it's on a slight slope. So there's a little bit of elevation and roughly a 5% grade there. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so they're talking about a disputed area with regard to the quiet title action that they've filed in their cross complaint. The fence that I'm proposing doesn't intersect any part of the disputed area. The disputed area is this area right here. This is the disputed area. They placed a fence onto my parents' property, and then they put in some wooden steps. There was a tree located here. The wooden steps were.
Mr. Norman, if you're going to speak there, can you take the mic with you? Because we do need to have it all recorded. Thank you. I'm sorry for that.
Just take the whole thing. Okay. Yeah, it's important to point out that the disputed area is this encroachment that exists, and the fence doesn't intersect with the disputed area at all. It's just below that. And ultimately, when we do resolve this conflict and we get the encroachment removed, it would be nice to have the fence extend up to here. But I knew that the McGuinns would be, rightfully so, want to dispute that. So I left that out of the equation. So this is our land. There's no dispute on it. The McGuinns got a survey in 2004. They put up this fence in 2007, and they cut the tree down here in 2014 or late 2013. So all I'm trying to do is establish some of the privacy that we used to have. So next slide, please. Again, the location of the proposed fence with relation to the McGuinn's property and their house. Next slide. You can go next slide. Okay, so this is literally the area where the fence would be located. It would traverse roughly the fence itself. The fence posts would be roughly 3 inches from the boundary line and go just above the location of the sequoia. The sequoia tree is within 2 inches of the boundary. And the tree stump that you see there, just the edge of the boundary line is on the right-hand side, and the left-hand side is 42 Norman Way. So I'd have to do have to get rid of that stump if the post is going to go there, probably. And next slide. This is what we see when we look up the hill right now. This is how visible their house is to us. We used to have total privacy. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial view of the same thing. You can see that there's a view corridor that's been opened up by the McGuinns that views out towards Mount Tam. And we are at the base of that viewfinder, or that view corridor. So it's basically like, even from within inside those yurts, you may not believe this, but from the upper story of the McGuinn's house, if you go back to the previous slide for a second, the upper story, they can see into our living spaces and all of the patio area. Next slide. Next slide. This is what the trees looked like in 2012 before the McGuinns cut down the trees. So we're just trying to get some of that privacy back. Any questions? Yeah.
For the offense, for when you place the footings, will they be on which side of the property line?
Completely on 42.
Okay.
Norman Way.
Thank you.
You keep saying this privacy that you lost. Explain that a little bit more. Is that from one single tree, or was that from multiple trees? I don't understand what it is that you lost.
So the yurts are down. The yurts are down here. The trees that were cut were here, here, and here, and now there's nothing here. So all of these trees, these are above the roof line. we couldn't even see their house. And if you recall that other picture, we could see the second story windows plus part of the lower level after the trees were removed.
They were all removed at the same time, that same year?
No, they did it over a period of 6 years. The first tree they cut was 6 months after my mom died. And the last tree they cut was in 2020. My mom died in 2013.
Last question, why are there no story poles out there?
Well, for a 6-foot fence?
We don't know where the fence is the problem.
Well, it's on this survey and it's,
But we can't see it on the site. When I drove out there 3 times.
He showed me, their stakes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was clear.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
Okay,
I didn't know.
yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't require story poles for a fence.
Oh, okay.
but the monuments are in the ground there. I showed Alex and Suzanne the location of the monuments.
What were the girth, it's hard to establish what the DBH were on the trees, but were they quite old?
The canopies were over 25 feet high and 25 feet wide. You can see from the previous or the next slide, you can see that they were above the roof line. They were mature. They were 45-year-old trees or 40-year-old trees. So they're irreplaceable in my lifetime. So I'll never ever have those trees back. My mom planted them.
Were they oak trees?
Yeah.
And did they block the view of Mount Tam from this house?
Did they block the view? I never went to their house, but I'm assuming that it did.
And these were trees on your property or on
Yes.
their property?
100% on our property. Actually, one of them was touching the property and one of them, the surveyor said it went over by 1/10 of 1 inch. So they grew and they eventually encroached a little bit onto the other side, but regardless, they were 90+% on our side.
So were there permits to remove the trees?
No.
Were they heritage trees, do you believe, which I believe are?
Coast live oak are protected trees.
They were protected and they were removed without permit, okay.
Any other questions
Do
for
you
the?
know who planted those trees? Just out of curiosity.
My mom,
So she planted them for privacy purposes?
She worked on the subdivision, the entire Norman Way subdivision. And the last lot that was sold to the McGuins. And it was her plan to have that lot at some point in time. And she ended up selling it. So before selling it, she planted trees on both sides so that there would be some barrier, some privacy barrier.
Was there any provision made to prune the trees to allow for views?
None.
Any other questions? All right, thanks very much. Now we will open to the public. Yes. Anyone in the room from public? Please just state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is John Kunzweiler. I live at 16 Norman Way. And I was on the planning commission for 10 years, so I can feel your pain right now. Thank you. I'm also I've lived on Norman Way about 25 years and off and on I've been, during the 25 years, I've always been an officer of the HOA, so I've been very much involved in this. And as you can probably guess from looking at the thickness of the file on this, there's a lot to the story and all of us are subject to a lot of litigation. So this is a very complicated situation and goes beyond the fence. The fence itself, I do object to it. And the reason is, first of all, it's unnecessary. It suits no useful purpose. It's in the middle of a property. It's clearly a provocative fence, a provocative thing to put on right on the property line for all these issues that you're getting into. And, having been the president of the HOA many times over the years, this has become it's become a lightning rod for a massive series of disputes. The legal fees on all this stuff is in excess of, it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we're talking about a lot more than a fence here. It is a very difficult issue as you've been told. This is all hopefully ending up in the Marin County Civil Court. Maybe in July, who knows, because there's been appeals and extensions. And as I said, The entire board of the HOA is being sued over this matter. I'm being sued over this matter. It needs to, so I think there's a technical view that you can take of this application. And I don't dispute that the planning department is probably correct on this stuff. But the role of the planning, of the role of the commission is to also apply judgment and good sense about how these neighborhoods cooperate and get along and make it through here. So I just ask for that extra consideration on your part. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Anyone else from the public in the room? If not, anyone on a Zoom call?
We have no hands raised.
All right, I will then close the public portion and I'm inviting back the appellant
The appellant,
for 5 minutes.
yes,
3
it's
minutes.
to just, they each get 5 minutes.
5 or 3.
Is it 3? Whatever it says on the paper. It's 3. Thank you.
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So the McGuinn's dispute almost every single fact that Mr. Norman stated. These are all issues in contention. The McGuinn's planted everything there. In fact, the document that is one of the documents on attachment 3 with the highlighting with the circles, that is the McGuinn's original planting plan from 30 years ago that was been propounded in Discovery. So that document right there. That's the McGuinn's planting plan from 30 years ago. They planted these trees. They planted everything that's in that hillside. They did not take out the trees that Mr. Norman is claiming. This is a major issue that is being litigated. There is one tree that was removed on the recommendation of an arborist because it had oak disease, sudden oak death disease. And that's it. The McGuinn's claim through various legal theories such based on prescriptive easement, equitable easement, revocable license, all of these various legal theories, they have a claim to the land that they have used, cultivated. They're the only ones who've maintained it. They're the only ones who've been pruning it, who pruned the trees, took care of the trees, put in irrigation. And this is not the forum to be deciding all of those issues. This is not the correct forum. The correct forum is a superior court where we're litigating it, and we've been litigating it for 2 years. Our position is that Mr. Norman does not have standing to bring this appeal. He is not a trustee any longer, and the trust owns the property. He also is bringing this fence, wanting to put up this fence for no other purpose than to put it as close as possible to the McGuinn's home, a few feet from their home. And it's extremely burdensome and it's punitive is really what it is. It's a spite fence. It's really the definition of a spite fence. So that fence could be put anywhere else on his property likely to achieve the same result. And again, there's no prejudice to anybody with leaving it as it is for another 6 months at a minimum, because that's how it's been. So let's get these issues adjudicated and resolved. Mr. Norman is actually not involved in the litigation any longer. He's no longer a trustee, so he's no longer a party plaintiff in the case. There's a lot of underlying issues, as Mr. Consueler said. But the fact of the matter is that it's really a punitive thing that he's attempting to do, and the equities would be best served for everyone to just leave the status quo, wait for the litigation to be resolved, and the whole thing will go away. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Does anyone have any questions for the appellant?
Oh, sorry.
Seeing none, we'll invite the applicant up. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry. All right. Thanks very much.
Yeah. So, it's not what you're hearing. This is not what's going on here. The lies just keep coming out of her mouth. They did not plant the trees. I have photographs from Google Earth Pro that showed the trees in the ground before they implemented their landscaping plan. I sent a copy of the landscaping plan. They implemented it in 2002 and the trees were in the ground before they implemented their landscaping plan. So that's a lie. They're talking about how they've developed this land. It's grass. Their little bit of their ground cover has crept over in front of their meditation bench, which they don't use. They place that bench there, but I've never seen them use it. And to say that let's just leave the status quo, we would have loved the status quo at 2012 when those trees were still 25-foot canopies. But now that there's a huge view corridor right down into our living spaces, we don't want the status quo. We want our privacy back. We had an expert tell us that our loss of privacy was worth over $350,000. And they're saying that I'm being removed as co-trustee. Well, I have a motion to reconsideration on the table with the judge who didn't even hold an evidentiary hearing in a contested matter. It's required by law. Something's going on here and it's a bunch of lies. And I'm just a little guy trying to put a fence up to recover some of my lost privacy. It's not that complicated, but we're dealing with attorneys here who think that they can push around a little guy because he doesn't have the wallet and he doesn't have the, experience working with, legal systems. So the reason that I'm here is because I know I have the truth on my side and I wouldn't be bothering with this fight if there was any question about it. They didn't plant the trees. The fence is not in the disputed area. It absolutely serves a purpose. When I get that fence in, I'm going to go ahead and put in some landscaping and hopefully the McGuinns won't come over and cut that down. Maybe it'll provide a buffer for future landscaping that I put in. I don't want them having access to it through their gardeners with their, they put, for example, we have a sequoia tree that there was ivy growing all over the base of the sequoia tree. And they also sent a letter saying that the sequoia tree was an imminent threat of falling onto their house and it had to be removed. They want their views and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get them. And I'm not tolerating that. Views aren't protected in California. If there's a tree growing in your land, you can't go over and cut somebody else's tree. That's ridiculous. And to say that they planted the trees, but the trees on our land, that makes it okay for them to cut them. If they plant trees on our land, say they did plant them, which they didn't, and I have photographs to prove it. Say they did plant them on our land. Those trees now are the owner of who owns that land, not the people that planted them. Every landowner in the world would be like, oh, you can't just plant trees on my land and then take them down. I mean, that's ridiculous. So that's what we're up against here. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I have questions to staff. Oh yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Do you want me to keep the screen on for anything else?
So, I'm gonna ask counsel. If I were a renter, let's say, and I want to put up a fence and the owner actually had no objection to it, was neutral, like didn't care whether we did or not. Can a renter apply and put up a fence?
I had a feeling you would ask that question. I don't have that specific answer for us right now. A permit runs with the land. At the time of the application, we reviewed the documents. It was a trust, showed that the applicant was a trustee. So at the time of the application, the town did its due diligence to confirm ownership. In this case, this person, who the applicant is defending the application for the appeal, but I don't have the specific answer of does a tenant have a right to make an application. In this case, the trust, I believe, has submitted comment saying they are neutral. I should pull up the specific language, but
I just want to make sure that
permit runs with the land at the time of the application. The applicant, the town did its due diligence to confirm that the applicant had the authority as trustee at the time of the application. In terms of appeal procedures, our resolution, uses the word applicant for the appeal process before the board. So the applicant is.
And do people have do owners or the applicants have rights in the town of Tiburon to put up a fence on their side of the property line, not on the property line, but clearly on their side of the property line, up to 6 feet, no questions asked. But could there be a dispute on the porosity of or design of the fence? And that's what we've seen typically, right? You can build a fence.
Yes.
It's not a question of whether you
Right.
can have a fence. It's usually a dispute. And where we come in and to mediate between two parties who have an aesthetic opinion. But if it's clearly on one side, I think typically what we've deferred on, am I being correct? But is that to preserve the civility between two adjoining neighbors. That's where we have come in and talked about, well, why don't you offer this type of fence?
So, yes, so I would answer you in the following manner. We allow fences on people's property. Generally, if it's exactly on the property line, then we do have both sides agree to that so that there's no footings on either side. But in most instances, when that occurs, the applicant will move that fence entirely on their property and not on anyone else's to avoid that kind of a conflict. What you see before you is usually any kind of conflict about the design itself.
This is not about design. This is purely about, there is an appeal of whether or not someone has a right to build a fence on their property.
Well, what you're doing is you're appealing the director's decision to approve that fence
Okay.
in that location.
So we are,
You're not
we're not talking about the
deciding,
fence.
yeah.
It's purely whether or not you have the right to make the decision.
It's purely whether or not you agree with my decision
Okay,
to approve that fence.
okay.
And just to sort of remind you what you can do with an appeal, so you can grant, partially grant, or deny, and you can add conditions as you would, even if it's not specifically related, you can add conditions to the project. I think that I could read the language specifically, so that, you may adopt additional conditions of approval that may address other issues or concern than the subject of the appeal. The findings, decision, and action are final.
Thank you.
I have one question to add. As Suzanne mentioned, we often, when fences come before us, it's design, height. What about location? Has there been prior applications where location is discussed? Is location within the jurisdiction of the design review?
So I would say it in the following manner, we have had perimeter fences where you have decided whether a certain material should be in that location, but not necessarily where somebody's putting it. So you discuss more about the materials itself. As long as it's on someone's property, you generally don't ask for that to be removed.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff before I close public comment?
I just want to make sure that whatever we decide would not put the city or the town in jeopardy. Could that be the case?
You're reviewing staff's approval of a fence. The future is the future. The town peer reviewed the survey, confirmed ownership at the time of application. What happens in the future would be a building department or enforcement issue should that come up at all, and it is, the town's discretion. So
Could you explain, just so that a layman can understand like me, the dispute where there was a giant fence put in Tiburon by a property owner? And there was a dispute where it resulted in the town being sued. Could you, is that a completely different case? This was the.
I'm not aware of that, but I'm happy to
This was
look into
prior-
it.
it was
Yeah,
prior to your
me.
time.
Okay.
It was a black fence that was made out of
So-
metal. That
So,
one. You don't know what I'm
because
talking
that's
about.
going to be coming forward to you, I would caution, too in-depth discussion, but the town is not being sued.
But
there is a dispute between property owners, which is very different than the town being sued. So we are not a party to any of that argument.
You're not party, but there was an incident a couple years ago. That's what I'm referring to.
Yes, but that's the one she's referring to, and it turns out it's the parties that are involved, not the town.
Correct.
The
And-
town
and
was
the
asked for
town- The town
information.
was.
The town is
was
not involved in any litigation that I am aware of with
Okay.
respect to a fence. There have been disputes between those two property owners, and you will be seeing that at a meeting coming to you.
Yay.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. Okay, thank
All right.
you.
We're gonna close public comment and deliberate amongst ourselves. We'd love to kick it off.
I would.
Sorry, before
Before
you
me,
go, I will again beat a dead horse and remind us that we are making the findings to on the appeal and to either deny or uphold the decision of that staff made. And that is going through the guidelines, the design review guidelines. That's what we should be discussing.
Mhm.
Now,
So-
Jim.
So the question is whether we agree that the community director of community development had the right to make the decision.
And did not make it.
But the decision of the
Right,
director
was valid,
was valid.
based on the code's site plan architectural review
Exactly.
guidelines.
a large part of this is areas that we don't want to get involved in at all.
Yes.
And the notorious and open part, the unnecessary and provocative part. But what we should get involved in, I think, is the quality of the fence and the kind of fence and the ugliness or not of the fence. Even though it's been permitted by the town, it's an aesthetic decision, and that's our purview. Now, this is a 32-foot long fence that the owner wants to enlarge. Personally, I don't think he needs a fence there, but if it were going to be a fence, the most invisible of fences would be the best choice, because this is an area where the land is very open between the houses. There are no fences between most of those houses. Where there is a fence along the road coming up, it's a very elegant zigzag fence that steps down 6 inches or so at every panel. In other words, somebody took some concern about the design of the fence. And it's the only fence I saw up there looking around, other than a few fences right next to the houses for concealing garbage cans and that sort of thing. So if I were to suggest a fence here, the first thing I would do is try to suggest one that can't be seen. And that would be probably a 4-inch or 6-inch pressure treated peeler log, which is gray-green in color, and chicken wire, hog wire that's either 4x4 or 6x6 in dimension that you see through. Neither one of which would make Mr. Norman happy, and it wouldn't make the applicants happy either. But you want an invisible fence there. That's beautiful territory, and it's open and it's gorgeous. It's been pruned, it's been maintained well. I don't think a redwood fence with a 6-foot height on it is even close to what should be put in that area. This is an aesthetically beautiful area, and it shouldn't be destroyed by a fence. The ability to see it continuing around all of those houses is important. Now, the privacy issues are different issues. I think Mr. Norman might have planted some more trees if he wanted more privacy, but you heard him say that he let the trees grow up into the view of the people who are living in that area. And that's a problem we have all over Tiburon. You know, view and privacy are a huge problem and becoming bigger every year as our trees mature. So I would not allow a 6-foot high solid redwood fence there. I would vote against any solid fence. I would make a very open fence if it's absolutely what he wants, But that would serve a different purpose, not a privacy purpose. It would serve a animal purpose. And you don't need that fence for an animal purpose because there obviously are deer walking through that territory and all other kinds of wild animals. So you don't really need a fence. You want a fence for the wrong reasons. I would vote against the fence, and I would not approve a fence in this area if it were my own choice. Thank you.
I'll say I approached this as looking at, we had a very simple question. It's all design review. I would almost echo everything Jim said, that this is a area that looks like we see many of our open space and the trails that go by open space. They're usually open fences that again blend into the hillsides very comfortably and very easily. It's not for safety. It's not for, like say, animal protection, etc. I think if the question is only design, I absolutely would not approve this.
As a design review board, our purview or what we rely on is not the intent of the fence. We don't question that. This is not about whether you have a right to build a fence. And if so, you have to have an O&M requirement. You have to have, considerations of the stain and all that stuff. And I'm just like, that's not what we're here for. I think the director of community development has a right to decide this. I mean, it's not whether or not what the purpose is, but I've been wavering back and forth about what the materiality is and the purpose of the fence. I think you can achieve both the privacy issue and establishing boundaries by having a porous fence and then putting thick planting on your side, that fence. That's where I lie. I think we can, if the dispute is about the porosity of the fence, which I think it is, then let's make it porous. And then you can go back, the owner can go back and plant whatever they want to on their side of their fence.
There's been no statements by either party about the porosity issue of the fence
Well,
or the visibility.
it was kind of implied because we were losing our view. So like, if that's the case, then let's make it porous, but then they can, if there's a privacy issue, then plant right on side your fence. I don't know. I don't think we should get into this dispute. I think we're just like, we're a design review board. And so what we can only thing, the only thing we could talk about is the director has a right to make the decision and we're just going to comment on the design. I think it's pretty simple, but yeah.
I mean, man, I'm in the minority tonight, and I'm likely the most empathetic on this board, to the appellants, and I understand the challenges that come up with property disputes, but the fact of the matter is it's not open space, it's private property. The applicant, there are reasons they want privacy. And this view is not protected, right? This view from the meditation bench of a little bit of Mount Tam is not protected view. From an aesthetic standpoint, the appellants, the McWinns, they can build, they have the right to build their own fence. I don't think that if there's an aesthetic concern of looking at this is a redwood fence. It's a high quality fence. I don't think this is not a stainless steel, aluminum chain link fence. This fence is all over Tiburon, and I don't think making it wire and have plantings, it's not the view's not protected, and I think the aesthetic the aesthetic impact, I think there's fences all over here where they have the right to do things on their own side, and I don't
You're saying something here that I don't understand. You say the view's not protected. Aren't you entitled to the view that you had when you moved into your house?
No, but it's the view from the only view that's impacted is maybe when you're sitting down on this stone.
You didn't listen to what they said. Those big oak trees that were cut down because they were blocking the view of Mount Tam.
But I'm saying this fence, so sorry, I'm saying the views that are impacted by this fence are not protected views. And the fence impact of that view is not protected, right? Because they can see Mount Tam.
It's not about the views, it's about the mediating between two parties are disputing the aesthetic quality of what's between them. That's what we're trying to do.
They're not this, this is a proposal from an applicant that for a privacy fence. The fence is going to, it is a barrier, a solid barrier in between the house and on 48 and the yard and the properties on, and the structures on 42.
If I'm not mistaken, you'll be looking right over the top of that fence after the fence is built to the place below from this house that you've got.
Yeah, and especially the second floor.
The second floor is going to be totally unprotected. So
Here's where
it's not
I think my line is very clear. I just want to articulate my position. You have a right to build a fence on your side up to 6 feet. If it's on your property, you get to build it. When it comes to us, it's usually two parties saying, well, I don't want that kind of a fence. I want that between us. So I'm just saying, okay, then we'll just remove kind of ourselves in the dispute and just make it clear. And then you could plant everything you want on it, because you could then.
That's not the art.
No.
That is not the crux of the argument of why.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that's what we have to.
I'm also saying, I guess from my standpoint is you have ongoing disputes. There is a desire to have a barrier to minimize the interaction amongst neighbors, and they have the right.
On one side. One of the parties has that desire.
But he has the right to.
He has a right to build a fence, we're saying.
We're saying he has a right to
But
build
you
a
have a right
fence.
to build a fence for privacy.
He doesn't have a right to build any kind of fence.
Because we always have this dispute, like we have these disputes of coming into here, like saying, well, I don't like this kind of fence. I want it to look like this. So we're just saying, okay, well, you get a right to build a fence. There's no question that
If
they get to right to build a fence.
No, but there's a difference between if the appellants at 48 don't like the visual appeal of the fence, they are able to, that is different from them saying, we have lost our view because of this fence.
We don't care. I don't care about that.
You don't care about the view loss.
That's not what's being disputed here. There is no view issue that's being disputed here.
So what is wrong with a solid wood fence?
I'm just saying, I'm just trying to mediate between two opposing parties and just saying, well, you get to build the fence, but let's just make it kind of go away.
What's wrong with it is once you build a solid fence, you can't just build a porous fence next to it and get back the condition of porosity. So the more solid the fence is, the more difficult it is to do anything with it. Now, if you really want a solid fence, build a stone wall.
But now you're sacrificing privacy for what?
No, I'm saying that there's no privacy being lost. I mean, if they want to build, if not the appellant, but the applicant wants to build privacy, they could put planting. Restore it back. Because they're right now using the fence. I'm just saying that these two parties are fighting over the fence, whether or not it should exist. Let's create a existing fence, and then you can create the privacy through planning. I don't know. I'm just
I don't,
twisting this argument around because,
You know, so I don't think a 6-foot fence solves your privacy issue.
yeah,
The,
Yeah, it's not
the
gonna
main
solve it.
concern even expressed tonight was that the privacy is really impinged when you look viewing from this second floor. You know, of the house, not even at the, when you're looking from the ground level or with this, you're looking at the top of the roof. And most of the privacy loss is when you're up in the second story, and that was even brought up tonight in their photographs and views.
We're not disputing whether or not the applicant can actually build a fence. Because in this case, the applicant, whomever that is, because the trustee is whomever, you know, is there, like, they don't really care whether it goes forward or not. All we're doing is just creating. I
And it-
mean, if the disputes, if they're disputing the aesthetic quality, there was like questions about the O and M of it, the staining of it, blah, 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 and like, let's just not even go into that thing and just let them build a fence. And then the applicant can just come back and just plant right next to it.
I think there's a motivation to build a solid wood fence from the applicant, and it is to be a physical barrier between a property where there's
and
not a good relationship,
and we're
and
just
I
saying
think
that
he has that right
We're
to
just
do,
saying
and
that he doesn't have a right to a solid fence.
We do that, we do that all the time, though. We do that all the time because like there's often disputes between two parties and then we're just like, well, let's just change the aesthetics of the fence. That,
But on
that
what
might,
it's finding, I just like, if we go back to the guidelines, like, I just.
the guidelines, then I would say that the director of community development has the right to make the decision and all we're doing is putting a tiny little condition saying, well, we'll just make it clear.
But for what reason? For like, I'm like, if you
Because
look
the
at our guiding,
aesthetics- The aesthetics of the neighborhood demand it.
Yeah,
That's
Alex, we had a fence a few, even a couple of months ago that we didn't approve from the appearance of the fence.
Yeah,
And we asked them to change.
it's the aesthetics. We're the design review board.
I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at a solid wood gate that the neighbor has right now that is the gate to their stairway or whatever. It's solid wood. I think this is
You're saying that anybody should have a right to build a solid fence. That they should have a right to build a solid fence.
I'm saying this solid wood fence is not, if you think about the guidelines and the impact on there's no impact on view, there's no,
It's not about view.
but there's,
It's about aesthetics.
I guess we're disagreeing on that. It impacts the aesthetics of the property.
Well, then why couldn't
and-
why couldn't they build a 6-foot high plastic wall, bright white fence then, if that's your thinking?
This is just this isn't a crazy design. This is a run of the mill,
Yeah, but it's an ugly. design.
solid redwood fence.
It's an ugly design in this location.
Jim,
So I'm sorry, we're close to the public.
Close to the public.
Oh, I'd call for the question.
I mean, I'm just I'm saying that
So-
the intention of the applicant to build this, and from what I've heard, it is to be a physical barrier on the property line between the neighbor's structure, which is right there, and the rest of the applicant's property. Is closest to their living structures. For reasons we've all heard tonight, there is a desire to have more of a physical barrier. That is allowed, and I'm trying to understand what the violation of
It's not a violation.
guidelines.
It's not a violation. It's not a violation of guidelines. It's just an aesthetic decision that some of us have, an aesthetic intent for the context.
No, I'm not.
Aesthetics are
Someone
our aesthetics are contextual, like some cases, maybe a redwood fence would be a standard vertical picket fence would be warranted. In other cases, it may not be. But the issue here is, I think all of us do agree that the Director of Community Development made the appropriate decision and had the right in her jurisdiction. So I think we should deny the appeal. I think we all agree on that. The question we have is, do we want to deny the appeal and then put a condition on it?
Let's do it.
If I may,
Yeah.
any condition we impose has to be really, really clear, where both sides, staff, the board understand exactly what it means. No one can have an alternative explanation or interpretation of the condition. It has to be like, when you do a condition and you're like, lower the fence by 3 feet, lower this by 3 feet, lower that, has to be something really quantifiable. So when we go into, which is, you are within your right to impose a condition, but I want to be really delicate about how we craft the condition so that there's no misunderstanding in the future that would then bring us back to this
I
board
think of
potentially.
Miles's hog wire 2x2 with an aesthetic wood cap, blah, 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 blah. I don't think we're.
So, yeah. So whatever condition we workshop, I want it to be I really advise that it be very, very clear and
Okay, I'm gonna make a meta argument that I think she has a right in her jurisdiction, in her purview to make a decision on something like this. It's clearly in someone else's thing, and I don't want us to overstep her right to make a decision. So that's where I feel.
I don't have a problem with that. But I think that we ought to just make a motion to the effect that we have approve of the,
We deny the appeal.
we deny the appeal,
Yep.
and that we add a condition that the fence be made of 6-inch peeler poles, they're called,
Mm.
pressure treated, that are greenish in color, and that they be no more than 6 feet, 0 inches maximum from the ground to the top of the pole. And that wire mesh, 6-inch by 6-inch, number 10 wire mesh be put over the,
6x6.
make it 4x4. Okay, 4x4,
jump
I
in?
changed my motion.
And then maybe it's
6
just
by
that.
4 inch.
Excuse me. Sorry, please go ahead, Dina.
Welded wire mesh be,
I think Dina's
Put it on.
has something.
So are we still in discussion or is there a motion on the floor? Because you've lost me here.
getting close to a motion.
Okay, so, yeah, right. So there's a
He
motion.
hasn't said we can have a motion yet.
I said, make
Did
a
you?
motion.
Oh, you okay? All right. Well, then I make it a motion.
I think she's just saying we need to be.
You need to be really clear, so he can make a motion, then we can have a vote, we can see if it goes there. Or not.
I think we can't be so prescriptive.
And I would also, if we do want to start,
Do something.
looking into, you always have the option of continuing with, direction to come back with a specific example of what you would like that fence to look like. But I just, again, want to reiterate that a condition we impose, no room for interpretation by anyone. I want it to be a very clear condition. Everyone agrees 100% on what it looks like and what it means.
You don't like the peeler poles?
I think it's way too prescriptive. I think
They're asking for prescription.
I know, but
Yeah, I do need something that the board can agree upon as a design. Because what we are going to be doing is when the applicant builds that fence, it has to meet that design. We'll bring that resolution back to you is how I would like to do it. So we make sure that the verbiage is how you want it to be.
okay, then we can direct staff to make a resolution to deny the appeal.
Wait, are you gonna make a condition on the,
And-
can I just say something one more time?
I think there was a,
Can you maybe think about? I'm trying to figure out what is a fully transparent fence that does not enclose anything that is supposed to be a barrier going to accomplish. So maybe I will plead with you guys, as you're making the conditions on the design, maybe think of some solid wood designs that maybe have smaller planks and more spacing that let it more airy, but like,
We don't want a chain link fence.
We don't want a chain link fence.
No.
We don't want a steel galvanized fence.
Mm.
We don't want to, we might select a steel black fence, but it's much more expensive. This is a country area. We're trying to put something in there that doesn't have a lot of density to it. We'll still let animals run through it. And then if they still want to build it, they're going to build a fence that's very transparent. And if you do this, because the background vegetation is all green and woodsy, these poles are, you've seen them in a lot of places, but if they're spaced 6 feet on center and you put wire across them, they will disappear as close as you're going to get it.
all right.
Here's where I'm just gonna like remove myself from the aesthetics. I really do think it's just a decision where it's being appealed because they're saying that she doesn't have the right to make the decision and
She just made the decision. And we're.
that she made the decision, she has the right to make the decision and that it's valid.
But all of us agree that a solid redwood fence is not appropriate.
He's saying it is.
Well, three out of four can't be all of us. I just disagree with a redwood fence. A solid fence in any place up there isn't appropriate in that area. Unless you make it a really well-designed fence. So.
Where do you lie?
Well, I'd like to see a wood fence that has I guess you'd say an open design, allows for wildlife to go through.
That's too not specific enough for them.
Can I make one more? Just one counter. The thing is, it's not gonna feel like it's floating. It's not a floating fence. It is going to, I think, connect to, it's on the property line. There's already a fence on the property line. So it's not gonna feel like this random floating structure.
It's going to be extended, he says, across another 100 feet or so.
No, 30 feet, 32 feet.
It's 32 feet now. You made the statement you were going to extend it across.
Sorry, we can't
Just-
put it to the
So
applicant.
I
sorry.
think we just need to talk about whether or not it's a solid or not fence. Because I think we need to get to something with this. And you definitely can, it's not a personal thing that, I made the decision about a solid wood fence. Considering the applicant came in because he wanted privacy. We grant that to many people. We just did that on Leland with a fence. We've done it on many other ones for privacy for people. So that is why I made that decision. It is perfectly okay and within your purview to disagree with the design of the fence.
I think I'm gonna stick with Dina, and if the neighbor doesn't like it, they can always put up another fence on their side so they don't have to
Oh,
look
that's a
at it.
mistake. That's a mistake. Once you put up a fence like that, you can't put up another fence.
Well, we've seen that happen on Karen Way, so.
How about going to 4x4 redwood posts then with welded wire mesh? They will gray out after a while.
I mean,
I guess too, or why isn't an open wood design not enough guidance?
Because
they won't know what that means.
How much open wood?
I just want to know what does it means.
Yeah, she doesn't know, so we,
Some way to design it.
Well, they don't they have to then present the design that they feel we would accept?
If you feel you don't have enough information to make a decision, you can continue this appeal so that there is a design that you would like to look at that the board can agree on and approve.
so
if the
would we say to the applicant to bring a design, or do we say
not?
you would provide
You will
us?
say that you can work with the applicant to provide some designs and to figure out a design that looks more open to some of you and provides the privacy. I don't think that board member Alon is happy over there, but that's what we could do and we can continue it.
Happiness is not important.
It's not important. Oh, and so we could consider, what I would suggest is,
Yeah.
so
yeah.
we could go on the first meeting in December and we can work with Mr. Norman to achieve a design. So what you're doing is you're making, a motion tonight to deny the appeal and continue. Can they do that though?
I would
don't
just
think you
continue the decision itself.
Continue the decision itself.
And you could, you could also, as part of the condition, you can draft a condition, as approved by the director of, so it could be, here is the condition that you'd like, the design that you would like as approved by the director of community development, in which case, it could.
I don't want to come back to the
But-
next meeting and open it up again. Like, we are clear that we are denying the appeal.
So we could come back and I'm gonna ask council this, but I was thinking we could come back as this being a consent item. And if they have a problem with the design, they can pull it off as a public hearing.
But then it would open it up again for an appeal.
Yeah, I.
No, not for an appeal because it's,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Huh?
Let me look into that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Give us a few minutes to kind of figure out
To look
what's the
into
best way to do
the
it.
process, because I believe in,
I think an appeal is an appeal. Oh, denying appeal is, that's it.
I know, but if it's conditional, maybe if we could figure out a condition tonight, that would be fab, much more appropriate.
can we take a 2-minute recess?
Yes.
That'd be great.
Are we ready to come back?
Yes, finance guys. Everyone else is in the room. Okay, all right, we're back.
Hopefully it'll start there. Beautiful.
So I would recommend that we reach a decision today. And so it would be a motion to either approve or deny or conditionally, add your condition. And then we bring back the resolution at another meeting, and staff would work with the applicant and the appellant to reach a design that meets your condition. And then you would review the plans and that condition at that next meeting and adopt the resolution approving and denying. So
So what you're basically saying is at that next meeting, we're taking that resolution and making slight changes to the wording.
if that's what you would like, and of course you are within your, your discretion if you want to pull it off consent and kind of, that's up to you, but
If you pull it off consent, what does that mean?
you would open public comment and.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do maybe now is, Sam has, put up some what?
Nothing.
Put up some wood designs that maybe were more open that one could consider. So let me turn the lights down. Let's turn the lights.
I would also like to say this is on very short notice. So these are just rough examples.
And you
for some
could,
direction.
you could have an idea for a condition, and again, then, staff will work with the applicant and the appellant to make sure that the design meets your condition, however you've drafted it.
Yeah.
And you can review that compliance at that resolution of the design. At the next meeting,
I
when you
think-
adopt the
I
resolution.
don't know, I think philosophically, I believe the design review should provide a performance guideline rather than a prescriptive guideline, like 30% porosity with wood.
Well, I'm thinking maybe there's a few designs. This is just
Yeah.
starting up. And then providing us some reaction to that. I think there'll be some that will not agree with any of them, which is fine. But then we would have a motion. It should be more like option B, something like that.
You have some other fences?
Yeah.
How about can you show the vertical design you had there with that's gotta be 30% open. Is there
That's
anything
50,
wrong with
that's,
that?
50.
that's 50%.
50%?
Yeah, that's
Is it?
50%,
Okay,
or pretty close to 50, so.
right. I would be in favor of that.
Can you show some more? With less,
Suzanne, where are you
with
on
more
this?
openness?
I don't want to be prescriptive. I just want to say something like, he can make it out of wood. And it's like 25% open or
Well, that's what-
30,
that's what-
yeah.
That's right. So
we're at.
50,
Yeah.
50% open in wood and vertical design.
Oh, I don't want to be
Gotcha.
prescriptive, like they can achieve that anyway.
They asked us to, I thought.
Yeah, we have to. What?
It would be my preference for staff to know vertical, horizontal, how
Okay.
much openness is wood gonna be the material that we're gonna use or not.
I think since the applicant wants redwood, I'm okay using redwood vertically and just specifying like 25%, at least
Make it
25%.
At least 50% open.
Yeah, I would go with 50% open vertical, that wood, and let the applicant decide. Can we use that?
Yep, and
Gives them a-
the aesthetic of the top cap, I don't really care. Mhm.
Good, then let's not mention
Mention that the top cap be 6 feet.
I mean, the top has to be 6 feet. That's the guidelines of the ordinance, so,
Correct.
okay.
Is that a motion?
So so the condition, I want to make sure we want it to be wood.
We're okay with redwood.
Redwood, vertical, 50% open.
Yep.
The caps 6 feet, that's.
Or no, the
the
height
maximum-
height is capped at 6 feet.
Height
We're
is
not
capped at
talking,
6
we're
feet.
not
Perfect.
specifying.
Okay, you're not, okay, I just want to
Yeah,
make sure, okay.
yeah. I mean, it's not gonna be exactly 50%, right? You're gonna have to have some kind of member
Right.
holding it all together, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And similar to the design that Sam showed as an example. Okay.
Yeah, with the fence no higher than 6 feet as per the code.
Okay.
Okay,
Could you
so
read
wood,
back the motion?
50% redwood, that's vertical, that is the condition. So the motion would be something like motion directing staff to bring back a resolution denying the appeal with a condition that the fence is redwood, vertical, 50% open,
And 6 foot height
capped at
maximum.
6 foot height, exactly, per the
And-
code.
I thought we said at least 50% open.
At least, right, at
Yeah.
least
They want
50%
to
open.
go up.
50% open.
Approximately
Approximately 50% open. Okay.
So I move to make a motion to direct staff to bring back a resolution stating that we're denying the appeal with a condition that the fence is made out of redwood, vertical slats with 50% porosity and meeting the code maximum of 6 feet at any point from ground to the top of the fence.
I have to say that I don't agree with this because I just think it.
There's a motion on the table.
Understand that. I'm commenting on the motion.
Yeah, but we have to have a second and then you get to vote.
Before we second
And
that,
it,
Jim, could you
Yeah.
put some input, what was bothering you?
What's bothering me is this is a redwood fence again, and it's causing a blight across a space that doesn't need a blight. And a fence of this quality is still too closed. I mean, I would prefer to see something like a black wire fence or something like that with redwood posts if you want them. But I just don't think this is an area that should have that much solidity to it. It doesn't do anything for either neighbor. It ruins their properties. So I just don't agree. I don't like this kind of fence in this location. But it doesn't mean you can't go ahead and.
So there is a motion on the table with the condition that we listed, which was redwood, vertical slabs, approximately 50% open, maxed at 6 feet per the code. Is there a second to that motion? And then a vote if there is a second, if there is. No,
2 people are gonna oppose it, so
So it's a tie. We haven't voted, we could vote.
we haven't voted. You don't know. We don't have a second
we
yet,
don't have
though.
a second because
Is there no second on the
both of you
round?
don't agree to it. So do you agree with it or no?
I would like to see somebody else second it. I don't see why. I mean, there's no
You're the
reason
only
to vote
person,
for it.
you're the only person who would second it because they're not gonna agree to it. So,
We don't know that.
okay.
I would, if there's a second, we can call for a vote and see. I mean, I think
Anybody
that's,
want to second the motion?
I thought that, board member Ordosio did. Did you second the
I'll
motion?
second the motion.
Okay.
Name vote. because
No, what?
Each.
All in
Yeah.
favor?
I think we need to,
Let's-
I need to, do a voice vote, I
vote,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Board member Lot. Board member Ordosio,
Yes.
board member Kim,
Yes.
board member Rosner.
Abstain.
It's 4-1, so the motion carries. It does.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we're bringing that back at the next meeting. When's the next 20?
20th.
The 20th,
So if you abstain.
21st of this month in November, yes.
you can pass it.
Same time, 7 o'clock, yeah.
So, okay, so I always thought all motions had passed with 3 votes.
No,
No, okay.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Meeting adjourned.
it is.